Everyone has that one item in their wardrobe. I think you know the one that I'm talking about. That one that you're going to fit into one day. The one doesn't quite fit at the moment, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's never going to fit. It just doesn't fit right now. And there'd be no reason for you to get rid of it, because what if you one day fit into it and then you'll miss it and you could have been a style icon, but no, because you got rid of that one item, you have ruined your personal style for life. Well, this is the story of me and this skirt that I mentioned in my Lucy and Yak video, and expressed that at some point I would like to extend its range, let's put it that way, and make it fit me. And so many of you in the comments expressed an interest in me showing you how I do that I thought I would make a video breaking down exactly how I have expanded this skirt to fit my current body. And instead of doing what I might have done otherwise, which is just a throwaway comment that says, I just added some panels, I thought I would break down exactly how I did it if you have never sewn before or you're a beginner sewer, because I don't know about you, but when I first started sewing, I really needed that little visualizer, that little just like, can you just explain it to me like I'm a Martian? Like explain every single little thing. Because if you've never altered a garment before, saying something like, adding a few panels actually has a lot of intuitive steps that experienced sewers might have learned over time and just forgotten they'd learned. Just like if somebody asks you to describe how you make a cup of tea and you boil it down to boil the kettle, do the tea bag, add the milk. And somebody who has never made a correct cup of tea before would be like, I'm sorry, what's a kettle? This video is for the what's a kettle kind of people. So whether you have this item because, like me, it was a gift you couldn't exchange for a larger size because the larger sizes were sold out or don't even exist, or maybe it was an unreturned order or a punt on a vintage find that didn't quite work out, or maybe even you used to fit into it and you don't in your current body, I am here to talk to you about how to make your clothes fit, or specifically if you have a skirt like this, make it fit. Because, and I think there is a received wisdom that sometimes applies, that if you have clothes in your wardrobe that don't fit your body, you should let them go. You should get rid of them and get rid of the guilt of not fitting into them symbolically through that action. Is all well and good, but in a world where it's not always certain if you are safely rehoming an item with another person and if it will eventually end up in landfill instead of being used and worn and loved until the day it dies. And in a world where we have so many clothes that we could dress another 6 generations of humans, I think that if you have an item that is that important to you, that it has survived multiple spring cleans, you fantasize about wearing all the time, you can totally see how it would work in your wardrobe, I think it's a shame to give up on that dream. And perhaps you are still the right owner for that garment, it just doesn't actually quite close over your organs. And today we're going to try and fix that. Let the skirt expansion process begin. Now, you don't necessarily need a sewing machine, but I will link a video about why I think that sewing machines are actually a really great and very small investment compared to lots of other items in your home. And just like if you have a lawn, you might own a lawn mower, or if you have a carpet, you might own a Hoover. I would suggest that a sewing machine, if you own clothes, is the kind of lifelong logical item to own as an accompaniment to a certain category of stuff in your life to care for it and keep it looking good. But this is possible if you don't have a sewing machine. I don't want you to not try this just because you don't have a sewing machine. And also the sewing part is quite small. Like there's a lot of prep work, a lot of measuring. But if you do have a friend or a family member, or if you have a thing library near you where you can borrow things, or that you have access to a sewing machine at your library, or you have a repair cafe nearby, or you have a sewing shop that does drop-ins where you can try a sewing machine. All of those things are also possible if you want to do all the other prep in your house and then just do the simple straight stitch somewhere else. Now, my main strategy for expanding this skirt was to add panels. You can add panels with any fabric you like. For a skirt like this, which is made out of a kind of twill cotton, very similar to denim, very thick, I could have picked any kind of weighted cotton and it would have worked. However, I love this fabric. Don't know if you can tell because I already have the jacket that matches it, which is another tragedy about owning this skirt and it not fitting because I have the matching jacket and I wear it all the time. I really love this pattern, and I know that there were lots of items made by the brand Lucy Yak in exactly the same fabric that were all on resale websites. So I tracked down a pair of jeans with exactly this same pattern. But if you're going to choose a fabric for your panels, it doesn't have to be the same pattern at all. This is what I chose to do. And in doing so, thankfully, I rescued another bit of clothes from potentially landfill as well. So that's nice. But you can just use extra fabric that you have around your house if it's like a traditional black or blue denim. Going into a thrift or charity shop and doing a colour match on different items on the hangers would be really fun. And if you want to do a contrasting fabric, that would also be really cool too. But I harvested my fabric from this pair of jeans. I lay my skirt next to the jeans and I cut along the jeans fabric a little bit lower than where the original skirt was. So I had a little bit of room for hemming. Did I exactly measure how much? No. Did I eyeball it to around 2 centimeters? Kind of. I believe in you. I think you can work it out. Just rolling your fabric over twice and seeing how much fabric it takes for it to comfortably fold over 2 times and lay down relatively flat. That's about as much as you need to leave at the bottom of your fabric. The next thing you need is one of these. This, my friends and colleagues, is a seam ripper. You can get a fancy one like me when I didn't really know what I was buying and I didn't realize that there were loads of different types of seam rippers and some of them were really inexpensive. This will cost £7, which I think was far too much for a seam ripper. But you can also get very small ones like this. This one came in a sewing kit that I just got from a chemist. I think the whole sewing kit with all of the paraphernalia cost £5. So this cost very, very little and it's incredibly useful. I've also been using it of late to take logos off clothes. So if you don't see any Lucy Yak labels on my clothes going forward, that's why. So if that's something you also are interested in doing, not giving brands free advertising, could you stay still while I'm trying to teach the general public? If you also don't want to give brands free advertising when they're not paying for it and you don't know if you stand behind the brand completely, I would absolutely recommend investing in a seam ripper so you can take those labels off. But this is just an invaluable piece of equipment and I love my seam ripper. It's essentially 2 pointy prongs, but the sharp bit is in between the prongs, so you can't actually get at the sharp bit and hurt yourself. And you can slip this between 2 bits of fabric and only cut the thread, not the fabric on either side. And it's freaking genius. So I used the seam ripper to unpick the cut off legs from my jeans so they could become 2 flat pieces of fabric. And then I wielded it again to unpick the 2 side seams of my skirt. Then came the magic. Now this bit you are going to have to vibes it a little bit, or if you're geeky you can do the maths, but it really depends on how small your garment is compared to your body and how much you need to extend it by. Me personally, I kind of eyeballed it and it ended up being 3 inches at the top and 5 inches at the bottom, because that's vaguely the gradient of my A-line skirt, like kind of what it looked like. But if you're geeky, you can measure the top of your skirt and the bottom of your skirt and then mathematically work out what the incline is and do that. But if you're just planning to wear the clothes yourself, you are allowed to eyeball it. It's not, I don't think that there's that much difference if you get it a little bit more of a dramatic slant than the original skirt. So I cut my fabric into these kind of triangle shape patterns, 3 inches at the top, 5 inches at the bottom. I don't cut these on an angle because you want the weave of the fabric to still be straight. Most fabric, when you look at it, is made out of hatching, so lots of threads going down and lots of threads going across. Most likely your original garment has been cut straight, so you need to also cut your panel straight so it falls like the rest of your garment. Do not be tempted, even if you want to save fabric, to cut it at an angle because chaos will ensue, and God knows there's already enough chaos in this process already. So cut it straight, cut 2. I made the decision to use the original hem of the bottom of the trousers as the top of my skirt, the smallest bit, just because it was already hemmed and I didn't want to hem at the waistline where there's not much room for it. I thought that'd be really annoying. It'd be much easier to hem at the bottom. So if you already have an existing hem on your fabric, don't unpick it, use it. Why are you doing the work twice? It's already been done for you. Now, the next bit is the sewing. If you are using a sewing machine, I would say, and you're sewing denim, please get a denim needle. They're very, very easy to find and incredibly cheap. Please do not use a normal needle. I don't actually really know why. I just know from more experienced sewers that it goes wrong. So I obey them. They're the overlords. I am just their loyal subject. But get a denim needle. And also, I just tend to copy whatever thread is already in the garment. For this garment, all of the thread is black. So I just copied and I got some black thread. Now, this bit is interesting. I decided to finish the edges, which is when you have a raw edge and you finish it sometimes with an overlocker or just a more decorative stitch on your sewing machine. I decided to finish the edges of my panels. Spoiler alert, I had to add another panel, but don't look at that right now. We'll explain that in a minute. Just imagine that this is my only panel. I decided to finish my panels before I attached them to my skirt. That was because I thought that if I ever needed to unpick the panels and make the skirt smaller or even bigger, it would be really useful if all of my seams weren't attached to each other. I thought that would be much better. So that's what I've done, but you do you. So I finished the edges of my triangles. I will leave the name of this stitch and the sewing machine that I use below, but you can use whatever stitch you like as long as it just stops the fabric from fraying. And if you're hand sewing, you can just use a blanket stitch or something like that. I'm sure it will be totally fine. Who actually gives a rat's ass? I'm joking, I give a rat's ass, but it's really up to you. And I think that lots of different stitches work to stop your fabric from fraying. And I don't think there is inherently a right way to do it. Once you've finished the edges of your panels, it's time to attach them to the skirt. And this is very simple. You just line up the smallest bit with the top of the skirt and the biggest bit with the bottom of the skirt. You pin it in place and you sew a straight line. And if you're like me, you think, I'm done. This is now a circle. I've attached the two panels to the outside of my skirt. Let me try it on and bask in my glory. Oh no, wait, hold on a second. It still doesn't fit. I measured it wrong. Oopsie daisy. And then you go back to the drawing board and you cut two more panels and you attach those panels to the other panel. And then what you have are two extra panels on either side. Now, with my second panel, I actually ended up leaving a little band of fabric on the inside of the skirt that doesn't add much bulk to the skirt, doesn't bother anybody else, nobody else knows that it's there, but I know it's there. And this is actually my insurance policy for if I need to alter the skirt again. I have this extra bit of fabric waiting for me should I need to let the skirt out again. And all I'd need to do is get my trusty seam ripper and rip out one straight seam and then resew it. So not only are you making this garment fit you, but you're future-proofing it for future iterations of your organ bag, your flesh prison, whatever mood you're in and whatever you're calling your body on whatever day you're in. And I personally enjoy knowing that I don't need to do this again. You put in the work, and then you leave your future self a little treat so you don't have to do all of that work again. Surprise, surprise, we're actually already at the end of the project. You just need to hem it. Mine vaguely matches the size of the original hem, but not perfectly. But again, only you are going to see the inside of your clothes. So it's really up to you how much you care. And as somebody who literally wrote a book called Half-Arsed Human, I inherently only care half the time. Hemming is literally just, as we talked about before, when I was like, fold over the bottom of your fabric 2 times to see how much you need to leave for a hem. Hemming is literally just folding it over twice, ironing it if you're fancy, and then sewing it so it stays in place. You're welcome. Now, if you thought this was the end of my journey with this amazing skirt that now fits me, you'd be wrong. Because then I was looking at the sad trousers that I had left over, which turned into very weird dad shorts. And I was like, what can we do with the rest of this? And I thought, actually, I've seen some tutorials online of how you can turn trousers into skirts. Why don't I give that a go? Turns out it was one of the easiest things to do ever. I'd say altering that skirt, all in all, probably took me 4 hours, but that's because I fucked up the panels and had to redo them. And I was just pissing around a lot because I'm a pisser. I'm a piss-arounder. Making the second skirt, which looks like this and is more of a pencil skirt, probably took about 20 minutes. I am not kidding. All I did was get my seam ripper. How come everybody in the whole population owns a pair of scissors and only a very few people own a seam ripper? I don't know, but you will get your trusty seam ripper that is now your best friend, and you just unpick all of the stitches from the crotch. Actually, that bit did take me a little bit. I was doing that while I was watching Robin Hood the night before. So let's not lie, Lena. How long did that take you? That probably took me about half an hour to like pick out all the stitches. And then it took me 20 minutes. Then I just opened up the seams, and instead of these two bits kissing to make a leg, I took them apart and made these two bits kiss so that they made the front of the skirt. Am I making any sense? Then I folded down the front of the crotch until it was lying flat. I pinned it in place and I sewed it. So on the back, it looks a little bit like this, and on the front, it looks like this. If there wasn't such a pattern on this skirt, you'd be able to see it more clearly, but there were absolutely hundreds of tutorials on the internet showing you how to do that. But I thought that was just a fun little extra I'd show you of what I did with the trousers, because I know that a lot of you were complaining in the comments about how the crotch didn't wear very well on your Lucy Yak jeans. So if you're looking for a way to upcycle your jeans into a skirt, that is a way to save otherwise perfectly good jeans that just have no decent crotch. Now, an option for both skirts, but I chose to do it just on this skirt, is to not hem the bottom of your skirts at all. Just pissing don't do it. Take a break. Instead, take your trusty seam ripper, which you love now, and deliberately fray the edges. I think this looks really cool. You literally just dig the sharp bit in and pull it up, and it frays the edges. And especially on denim, I think that looks very relaxed and comfortable and takes literally no time at all. So there you have it. Within an hour, you have a new skirt. And if you're somebody who has looked at skirts like that one and thought, I really like that, but I would prefer it to be a little bit longer, you can now just take a pair of trousers and select your perfect skirt length. This is what mine looks like on. It's definitely a different shape to this one. And I don't know which one I'm gonna wear more. Maybe I will see which one I don't wear as much and give the other one away, but I'm just glad that neither of them went to waste and I can finally wear this skirt. This is how both of the skirts look and I'm proud of them both. And at the moment, the only waste fabric I have is this strip and then this rectangle. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but they definitely won't go to waste. I don't know if I could make like a cute little matching mini bag or something with a strap. What do you think? Or I could address one of my bugbears with this jacket is that it's not printed on this side. So it's kind of like white when you roll the sleeves up. So I could, if it doesn't add too much bulk, line the sleeves of my jacket. How satisfying would that be? And that would be really cool, even if you picked a contrasting fabric for your panels in the side of the skirt, because then the sides of your skirt would match the cuffs. If you had like a matching jacket, it would match the cuff. It would be cool. It would be so cool. The world has been designed so we don't actually even understand how our clothes work. And I think that's as weird as us only eating out at restaurants since birth and never having had a kitchen. Like for houses that are built without kitchens, and you have this thing that exists in your life, but you have so little understanding of how it's made that you wouldn't even know how to like boil water. That is how clothes maintenance illiteracy has been built into our society. So like, why would you know it? Why would have I known it? But I hope this video has empowered you to make you feel like you're allowed to look it up. You're allowed to try. You're allowed to fuck it up. But there's a chance that you won't fuck it up. You'll actually do a pretty sick or at least passable job. And you'll be able to wear clothes in your wardrobe that you've had in there for years and been feeling the shame about not fitting into, and let yourself fit into them. Finally get the clothes to fit your body and not the other way around. And how cool would that be? Is that not worth a little gamble? With a little seam ripper? You'll never be alone. You're in it together. Human bodies change by design. That is literally what they're designed to do. They change with their environment and the experience of the spirit living within the body. That's literally part of the plan. It's the clothes that have not been planned around the bodies and the literal, like they had a warning. It was literally built into the system that they were built to clothe for millennia. Like this is just what bodies do. And the fact that your clothes don't change with your body is literally insane. So if you have ever felt bad that your clothes don't fit your body, it's not you, it's gestures wildly. This world. And I hope that you feel invited into the sewing world in the same way that, of course, you feel invited to boil your own pasta if you want to. Like, that's how broad the sewing world is, in the same way like the cooking world is literally anyone who's ever cooked a meal for themselves. Like, you're allowed in here. It's fine. You don't have to be great at it. Thank you so much for watching, and to the Gumption Club who tip me for these videos so they keep happening, and so that I was able to make that video that you're also kind about, where I talked about dropping one of my biggest sponsors, Lucy Yak, and why I did that. If you're interested in that video and I explain a little bit more about why I have so much Lucy Yak in my life and yet I am not completely content, that video is here, and I was only able to make it because of the support of the Gumption Club, which means that I do not rely on sponsors to keep the lights on. So if you're interested in joining my Patreon, I'll leave the links below. And if you have any suggestions, sewists and non-sewists, although we're all just future sewists, aren't we, what I should do with this spare fabric, just another visual there of how much I've got left, suggestions very welcome. And I'd be happy to update you to let you know what I end up doing with it. Thank you so much for watching. Happy sewing. Your body's fine. Frog's Dog out.